Let's dive into the introduction of How to Take Smart Notes by Sönke Ahrens. This part sets the stage for the reader by highlighting the critical importance of note-taking, not just as a tool for remembering things but as the foundation of all intellectual work. The author begins by observing that everyone writes, students, professors, and nonfiction writers alike. Writing here doesn't just mean formal papers or books but includes all the day-to-day notes we make. Jotting down ideas, summarizing insights, or even sketching out arguments. These activities are so essential to learning and creativity that they often go unnoticed, like breathing. Yet, most people don't give much thought to how they take notes or the role those notes play in their intellectual endeavors. Ahrens emphasizes that writing is not something that happens after thinking or learning. It is integral to both processes. The act of writing itself generates insight. He makes a compelling argument that note-taking is often neglected or approached haphazardly. For instance, many guides on academic writing focus on formal requirements like style and structure or psychological tips to overcome procrastination. But they fail to address the more fundamental issue of how to build a solid foundation for writing through effective note-taking. This neglect, Ahrens argues, leads to the common blank page problem. The panic many writers feel when staring at an empty screen is a symptom of poor preparation, not a lack of creativity. To write well and with ease, one needs a reservoir of ideas, thoughts, and insights already captured and organized. A treasure trove of smart, interconnected notes. Ahrens underscores this point with a powerful statement. Good writing depends not on what happens when you sit down to write, but on everything you've done before. The introduction also touches on why traditional note-taking methods often fail. Most people jot down notes in ways that are unsystematic, inefficient, or disconnected from their broader goals. The consequences of these habits may not be immediately apparent, but they become painfully obvious during moments of deadline panic. Ahrens critiques the myth of the blank page, arguing that it arises from the mistaken belief that writing starts with a blank screen or paper. Instead, writing should begin with a rich, organized system of notes that allows ideas to flow naturally and effortlessly into a coherent piece. Ahrens takes a moment to challenge the belief that writing must be a struggle. He explains that many successful academics and writers approach their work differently, relying on systems that make writing not just easier but enjoyable. The author hints at the method that will be central to the book, a system of smart notes, inspired by the slipbox technique of Niklas Luhmann. This system allows writers to develop and connect ideas over time, transforming writing from a daunting task into a natural extension of the thinking process. To drive home the importance of preparation, Ahrens cites research showing that success in academia is less about intelligence and more about effective workflows and habits. He makes a fascinating point that high IQ correlates with academic success only up to a certain level. Beyond that, what truly matters is self-discipline and the ability to organize one's work efficiently. But even self-discipline has its limits. Rather than relying on sheer willpower, Ahrens suggests creating an environment and workflow that naturally leads to productive work. For example, setting up a system that makes it easy to capture, retrieve, and develop ideas reduces mental friction and increases the likelihood of consistent progress. The introduction concludes by framing the book as a solution to these challenges. Ahrens promises to teach a system that not only helps with writing but also enhances thinking and learning. He sets the tone for what's to come, a step-by-step guide to turning thoughts and discoveries into meaningful written pieces, all while making the process enjoyable and sustainable. In Chapter 2 of How to Take Smart Notes, Sönke Ahrens delves into the actionable steps required to implement the note-taking system that serves as the foundation for effective writing, learning, and idea development. This chapter builds on the theoretical framework laid out earlier and transitions into practical strategies. It emphasizes the importance of treating writing and note-taking as interconnected tasks that are seamlessly integrated into one's daily workflow. Ahrens opens the chapter with an imaginative exercise, asking readers to picture a scenario where a genie has already prepared a rough draft of their paper. This hypothetical draft includes all references, quotes, and well-developed arguments, leaving only the task of editing. Revising a pre-prepared draft, Ahrens points out, is far less daunting than starting from scratch. Editing becomes a straightforward and clearly defined task. The analogy underscores the primary benefit of the SmartNotes system. By developing ideas through organized notes, the blank page ceases to exist. Writing transforms into the easier task of arranging and refining existing material. Ahrens explains that this preparation begins with a system of interconnected notes that evolve over time. The process he outlines is straightforward, systematic, and designed to minimize resistance. He argues that writing doesn't require monumental effort when the groundwork is already laid. This is a sharp contrast to the traditional approach, where writing is often treated as the final step in a linear process. Instead, Ahrens advocates for a cyclical and iterative process, where note-taking, thinking, and writing feed into one another. The chapter outlines the 6 key steps to writing with SmartNotes, each of which contributes to the larger process of creating a finished piece. 1. Make fleeting notes. The first step is to capture ideas as they arise. These fleeting notes are informal and unstructured, serving as a way to record thoughts before they're forgotten. Ahrens emphasizes the importance of always having a notebook or some means to jot down ideas, whether it's a scrap of paper or a phone app. The focus here is on immediacy, not perfection. The fleeting notes act as placeholders for thoughts, which can later be reviewed and developed into more structured ideas. For example, if a writer suddenly thinks of a metaphor for a concept they're studying, they should note it down immediately without worrying about how it fits into their larger work. This ensures that no valuable idea is lost. 2. Make literature notes. When reading, Ahrens advises taking concise notes that summarize key insights in your own words. He stresses the importance of paraphrasing rather than copying directly, as this forces deeper understanding. Literature notes should capture the essence of what you've read, including the author's main arguments and any particularly relevant points. For instance, if you're reading about Newton's laws of motion, you might write, Newton describes motion as a relationship between force and mass, summarized in the equation F equals ma. This simplifies complex physical phenomena into measurable components. This note is short but captures the core idea and is phrased in a way that reflects your understanding. 3. Make permanent notes. The third step involves transforming fleeting and literature notes into permanent notes. These are written with care, in full sentences, and are meant to be self-contained and easy to understand even when read in isolation. Each note focuses on a single idea and is linked to related notes in your system. Ahrens encourages readers to think of this step as writing for an audience. Be clear, concise, and thorough. For example, a permanent note might read, Newton's laws of motion revolutionized physics by providing a mathematical framework to predict the behavior of objects. This principle can be extended to explain celestial mechanics, laying the foundation for modern astronomy. See related note on Kepler's laws. Here, the note is precise and links to related ideas, facilitating further exploration. 4. Organize notes in the slipbox. Once permanent notes are written, they are filed into the slipbox. Ahrens highlights the importance of linking notes to one another rather than organizing them by rigid topics. This method fosters unexpected connections and encourages creative thinking. For example, a note about Newton's laws might link to notes on 18th-century scientific progress or the philosophical implications of determinism. The key is to let the structure evolve naturally rather than imposing categories prematurely. 5. Develop ideas from the slipbox. Over time, as notes accumulate, they begin to form clusters around specific topics or questions. Ahrens encourages readers to explore these clusters and identify emerging patterns, contradictions, or gaps in knowledge. This step transforms the slipbox into a tool for idea generation. By examining the relationships between notes, writers can uncover new angles or refine their arguments. For example, a writer working on a paper about the history of scientific discovery might notice connections between notes on Newton, Kepler, and the Enlightenment. These links could inspire a section on how the scientific method evolved during this period. 6. Turn notes into a manuscript. The final step is to use the notes to draft a paper or article. Ahrens explains that this process is more about assembling and refining existing material than creating from scratch. Since the notes are already well organized and interconnected, the act of writing becomes a matter of arranging them into a coherent narrative. Any gaps in the argument can be filled by revisiting the slipbox or conducting additional research. For instance, a draft might begin with an introductory note that frames the topic, followed by a series of notes that develop the argument step by step. The writer's task is to ensure the notes flow logically and address any missing elements. Ahrens emphasizes that this workflow is not linear. Writers are often juggling multiple ideas and projects at once, moving between note-taking, reading, and drafting as needed. The slipbox is designed to accommodate this flexibility, allowing writers to pick up where they left off without losing momentum. The chapter concludes with a powerful insight. Most writing struggles are not due to a lack of ideas or skill but to poor organization. By adopting the SmartNotes system, writers can transform their workflow, making writing not only more productive but also more enjoyable. Ahrens encourages readers to think of writing as a natural extension of thinking and to trust the process of building ideas incrementally over time. Chapter 3 of How to Take Smart Notes focuses on the essential tools and mindset needed to effectively implement the note-taking system. Ahrens emphasizes simplicity and functionality, stressing that having the right tools isn't about acquiring fancy gadgets or complex software, but about creating an environment that supports seamless thinking, writing, and learning. The chapter is a practical guide to setting up a system that minimizes distractions and maximizes intellectual output. Ahrens begins by comparing two contrasting approaches to problem-solving. One that complicates tasks unnecessarily and another that focuses on straightforward solutions. He uses the example of NASA developing a pen that could write in zero gravity, an endeavor that cost millions of dollars and required sophisticated technology. Meanwhile, the Russian approach to the same problem was to simply use pencils. This analogy underpins the philosophy of the slipbox system. Focus on essentials and avoid overcomplication. The chapter introduces the 4 tools necessary for building an effective workflow. 1. Something to write with and write on. At its core, the system begins with a simple tool for capturing ideas. Ahrens points out that pen and paper are often the best options because they are accessible and distraction-free. However, he acknowledges that digital tools can also be effective, provided they are used mindfully. The key is to capture fleeting thoughts immediately, without getting bogged down in formatting or categorization. For instance, a student in a lecture might jot down a quick note. Lecture discusses Newton's impact on the Enlightenment, connection to scientific method. This fleeting thought, though rough and incomplete, can later be developed into a more structured note. 2. A reference management system. Ahrens highlights the importance of organizing literature and references in a systematic way. He recommends using tools like Zotero, which allow users to store bibliographic information and attach notes to specific sources. This makes it easy to locate references later and ensures accuracy in citations. The reference system acts as a bridge between reading and note-taking, providing a repository of external knowledge that complements the internal structure of the slipbox. For example, a reference entry for a book on Newton might include a brief note. Chapter 3 explains how Newton's work influenced modern physics. Relevant for notes on causality and determinism. 3. The slipbox. The heart of the system is the slipbox itself. Ahrens explains that the slipbox can be physical, index cards in a wooden box, or digital, software like Zettelkasten. What matters is how the notes are organized. Instead of categorizing notes by topic, the slipbox relies on a system of interconnections. Each note is given a unique identifier and linked to related notes, creating a web of ideas that evolves over time. Ahrens provides a vivid example of how this works in practice. Suppose a writer has notes on Newton's laws, Kepler's contributions, and the Enlightenment's impact on science. Rather than placing these notes in separate folders, the slipbox allows the writer to link them dynamically. A note on Newton's influence might reference related notes on Kepler and Enlightenment philosophy, enabling the writer to explore the relationships between these concepts. 4. An editor. The final tool is an editor for writing manuscripts. Ahrens emphasizes that any basic text editor will do, as the system is designed to reduce reliance on external tools. The focus is on using the slipbox to develop arguments and draft sections before transferring them into a coherent manuscript. The simplicity of this approach ensures that the writer's energy is directed toward content rather than formatting or technical details. For instance, a writer drafting a paper on the history of scientific thought might pull together several related notes from the slipbox, arrange them into a logical sequence, and refine them into polished paragraphs. Ahrens then turns to the importance of organizing the workflow. He argues that many people overcomplicate their systems by adopting too many tools or techniques. Highlighting the dangers of clutter, he warns against using the slipbox as a mere archive for thoughts. Instead, it should be treated as a dynamic space for developing ideas. The slipbox is not a passive storage system but an active partner in the thinking process. To illustrate this, Ahrens describes how poorly integrated systems can create bottlenecks. Imagine someone who underlines key passages in books, writes excerpts in a journal, and takes notes in separate apps. When they try to connect ideas, they must sift through multiple sources, wasting time and energy. In contrast, the slipbox consolidates all notes into one place, making it easy to build on previous work and generate new insights. The chapter concludes by addressing common misconceptions about tools and workflows. Ahrens acknowledges that many people are drawn to complicated systems because they appear impressive. However, he argues that true productivity lies in simplicity and integration. The tools outlined in this chapter are designed to reduce friction, allowing writers to focus on the most important task, thinking. Ahrens's practical approach makes it clear that anyone can implement the system with minimal preparation. All it takes is a commitment to capturing ideas, organizing them systematically, and trusting the process. By stripping away unnecessary complexity, the tools become enablers of creativity and intellectual growth. In Chapter 4, Ahrens emphasizes the importance of understanding the system as a whole rather than focusing solely on individual tools or techniques. Tools like the slipbox are not magical solutions. Their effectiveness depends entirely on how they are integrated into your workflow. Without thoughtful implementation, even the best system can turn into an archive or, worse, a graveyard for unused thoughts. Ahrens warns against the trap of impatience. Many people abandon good systems because they fail to see immediate results. However, the slipbox is not about quick fixes. It's about creating a sustainable way to think, learn, and write over the long term. Like learning an instrument, using the slipbox requires practice and consistency. By dedicating time to the process, the rewards become increasingly apparent. The chapter also discusses common misconceptions. Many people assume the slipbox is only about storing information, but Ahrens stresses that its true purpose is to generate ideas. Notes in the slipbox are not static. They are dynamic pieces of a larger network, constantly interacting and evolving. For instance, a note about a historical event might lead to connections with philosophical ideas, sparking entirely new insights. Ahrens underscores the role of simplicity. Complex systems often create unnecessary friction, making it harder to stay productive. In contrast, the slipbox system reduces cognitive load by providing a clear, reliable structure for thinking. This allows the user to focus entirely on the content of their ideas rather than the mechanics of organizing them. The chapter concludes by urging readers to adopt a mindset of curiosity and exploration. Instead of rigidly planning every detail of a project, let the slipbox guide your progress. For example, as notes accumulate, patterns and clusters of related ideas naturally emerge, pointing you toward promising avenues of inquiry. This organic development ensures that your work remains engaging and aligned with your intellectual interests. By understanding the logic behind the slipbox and committing to its regular use, you can transform the way you approach writing and thinking. Ahrens encourages readers to trust the process, knowing that the system is designed to support creativity and productivity in the long run. The section titled "The Four Underlying Principles" lays out the philosophical and practical foundation of the smart note-taking system. Ahrens presents these principles as essential to understanding why the slipbox system works and how it transforms writing, thinking, and learning. Each principle sheds light on a key aspect of the process, encouraging a shift in mindset that aligns with effective intellectual work. Writing is the only thing that matters. Ahrens begins by asserting that writing is not just a final product of thinking and research but the medium through which these processes take place. He challenges the traditional academic approach that treats writing as a skill to be applied after gathering knowledge. Instead, he argues that writing is integral to understanding and developing ideas. For instance, Ahrens emphasizes that studying is not preparation for research, it is research. Similarly, writing is not a demonstration of knowledge but a tool for exploring and refining it. Students, academics, and writers should approach their work as if writing is the central task because it forces clarity, critical thinking, and deeper understanding. Ahrens illustrates this by noting that the most effective learners integrate writing into every stage of their work, from initial readings to final manuscripts. Simplicity is paramount. The second principle focuses on the power of simplicity. Ahrens explains that overly complicated systems often hinder productivity by creating unnecessary friction. The slipbox, in contrast, thrives on simplicity. Its straightforward structure, built on linking ideas rather than categorizing them rigidly, allows users to focus on content rather than organization. He draws an analogy to well-designed tools that fade into the background, enabling the user to concentrate fully on the task at hand. The simplicity of the slipbox not only reduces cognitive load but also creates space for complexity where it matters most. In the development of ideas, Ahrens urges readers to embrace this simplicity and avoid the temptation to over-engineer their systems. Nobody ever starts from scratch. This principle addresses one of the most paralyzing myths about writing, the belief that every project begins with a blank page. Ahrens argues that nobody starts truly from scratch. Even at the beginning of a new project, you already have ideas, knowledge, and questions in your mind. The slipbox builds on this foundation by providing a structured way to capture and develop these starting points. For example, a writer exploring a new topic can turn to their slipbox to find existing notes that relate to the subject. These notes act as a springboard, sparking connections and guiding the development of new ideas. Ahrens emphasizes that this approach not only eliminates the fear of the blank page, but also ensures that each project builds on a cumulative body of work. Let the work carry you forward. The final principle highlights the importance of trusting the process. Ahrens explains that a well-organized slipbox creates momentum by naturally guiding your progress. As notes accumulate and connections multiply, the system itself generates questions, insights, and directions for further exploration. This principle aligns with the idea of flow, a state of effortless productivity where the work seems to carry itself forward. Ahrens notes that the slipbox facilitates this state by minimizing resistance and encouraging continuous engagement. For example, a researcher might start with a vague question but find that the interconnected notes in their slipbox reveal a clear path to follow. By trusting the system, they can stay focused and motivated without needing to plan every step in advance. In conclusion, these four principles form the backbone of the slipbox system. They encourage a shift in perspective, treating writing as a dynamic and ongoing process rather than a static product. By embracing these principles, readers can transform their approach to writing, thinking, and learning, unlocking greater creativity and productivity. This section outlines a practical, step-by-step process to integrate the slipbox system into your writing workflow. Ahrens begins by emphasizing that successful writing depends on breaking down the process into manageable tasks. Instead of viewing writing as a monumental endeavor, it should be approached as a series of interconnected steps, each building on the previous one. This mindset not only makes writing less intimidating but also ensures consistent progress. The first step is to separate the tasks of reading, thinking, and writing into distinct, non-overlapping phases. Ahrens explains that trying to do everything at once leads to confusion and inefficiency. By focusing on one task at a time, such as understanding a text or developing an argument, you can give each stage the attention it deserves. For instance, when reading a complex article, the goal should not be to immediately write about it but to fully grasp its content and context. Ahrens stresses the importance of reading for understanding. He urges readers to engage deeply with the material, taking the time to analyze and interpret key ideas rather than merely skimming for surface-level information. This step often involves making literature notes, which are concise summaries of important points written in your own words. By paraphrasing instead of copying, you internalize the material and ensure it becomes part of your broader knowledge base. The next step is to take smart notes. These notes are distinct from fleeting or literature notes because they are intended for long-term use in the slipbox. Each note captures a single idea, written clearly and concisely as if explaining it to someone else. Ahrens emphasizes that smart notes should be self-contained, meaning they can be understood without additional context. For example, instead of writing a vague note like "interesting point about causality," you might write, "Causality in Newtonian mechanics assumes linear relationships, contrasting with quantum theory's probabilistic nature." This level of specificity makes the note useful for future projects. Once smart notes are written, they are added to the slipbox. Ahrens explains that this step involves linking the new note to existing ones, creating a web of interconnected ideas. The beauty of this system lies in its flexibility. Notes are not filed under rigid categories, but are instead connected based on their relevance to one another. For instance, a note on causality in physics might be linked to notes on scientific methodology or philosophical determinism. These connections often reveal unexpected relationships, sparking new insights and directions for research. Ahrens encourages readers to use the slipbox as a tool for developing ideas over time. As notes accumulate, they form clusters around specific topics or questions, making it easier to identify patterns and gaps in knowledge. For example, a writer working on a paper about the Enlightenment might notice a cluster of notes related to scientific progress, leading them to explore how these ideas intersect with political philosophy. This organic development process ensures that your work is grounded in well-established ideas while remaining open to new perspectives. The final step is to turn your notes into a manuscript. Ahrens emphasizes that this stage is more about arranging and refining existing material than starting from scratch. The slipbox provides a ready-made foundation for writing, with interconnected notes serving as building blocks for your argument. Any gaps or inconsistencies can be addressed by revisiting the slipbox, where related notes often provide the missing pieces. This approach not only streamlines the writing process but also ensures that your work is both coherent and well-supported. Ahrens concludes this section by highlighting the iterative nature of the process. Writing is not a linear activity but a cycle of reading, note-taking, and drafting. The slipbox facilitates this cycle by providing a reliable structure for capturing and developing ideas. With this system in place, writing becomes less about inspiration and more about consistent, deliberate effort. By following these 6 steps, anyone can produce high-quality work while avoiding the pitfalls of procrastination and writer's block. In the afterword, Ahrens reflects on the broader implications of the slipbox system and its transformative impact on writing, thinking, and learning. He reiterates that the system is not just about productivity but about fundamentally changing how we approach intellectual work. Writing, he argues, is not merely a task to be completed but a way of thinking and engaging with the world. The slipbox is a tool that helps foster this engagement by creating a dynamic and interconnected space for ideas to grow and evolve. Ahrens emphasizes that the slipbox system is more than a method, it is a mindset. By externalizing thoughts and making connections between ideas, you create a framework that supports continuous learning and creativity. The process becomes self-reinforcing. The more you use the system, the more rewarding it becomes. Writing no longer feels like a chore because you are always building on a solid foundation of prepared material. He also addresses potential doubts or criticisms about the system's simplicity. Some might question whether something so straightforward can truly make a difference. Ahrens counters this by pointing to the example of Niklas Luhmann, whose prolific output was directly tied to his use of the slipbox. The system's effectiveness lies in its ability to reduce mental clutter, allowing you to focus on what really matters, developing and articulating your ideas. The afterword serves as a final encouragement for readers to embrace the principles and practices outlined in the book. Ahrens underscores the importance of consistency and trust in the process. The slipbox is not a quick fix but a long-term investment in your intellectual growth. By adopting this approach, you not only improve your writing but also cultivate a deeper understanding of the subjects you explore. Ahrens concludes with an invitation to see writing as an ongoing journey rather than a series of isolated tasks. The slipbox system, when used effectively, becomes a companion on this journey, helping you navigate complex ideas and discover new insights along the way. It is a reminder that writing is not just about producing words on a page. It is about thinking, learning, and sharing ideas in a way that has lasting impact. The conclusion of How to Take Smart Notes ties together the book's practical advice and philosophical insights, emphasizing the transformative potential of the slipbox system for writing, thinking, and learning. Sönke Ahrens positions the system not as a quick-fix solution but as a sustainable and rewarding approach to intellectual work. By the end of the book, readers are encouraged to see writing as an essential, ongoing process rather than a daunting task to be tackled intermittently. Ahrens reiterates that the slipbox is more than a tool. It is a way of thinking. The simplicity is its strength. The system allows ideas to grow organically through interconnected notes, breaking down the walls of rigid categorization. For example, if you are writing about the Enlightenment, the slipbox helps you discover connections between notes on scientific progress, philosophical ideas, and political revolutions. These connections not only deepen your understanding but also spark new lines of inquiry, ensuring that your work remains dynamic and innovative. One of the book's central messages is that good writing begins long before the blank page. With a rich system of notes, you never truly face a blank page. Instead, writing becomes an act of assembling, refining, and expanding upon ideas that are already well developed. Ahrens uses the example of Niklas Luhmann, who wrote over 58 books and hundreds of articles using his slipbox. For Luhmann, the act of writing was effortless because his slipbox was a treasure trove of ideas ready to be explored and articulated. The book challenges the myth that writing requires extraordinary effort or genius. Ahrens argues that most writing struggles stem not from a lack of ability but from poor preparation and ineffective systems. He provides the example of how a single well-written note, such as a concise summary of Newton's laws, can serve as the foundation for multiple projects, from essays on physics to explorations of scientific methodology. Ahrens also stresses that the slipbox system is not limited to academia. Whether you are a nonfiction writer, a student, or simply someone who wants to think more deeply, the principles of smart note-taking can be applied to any area of intellectual work. For example, a chef researching culinary history might use the slipbox to connect notes on traditional recipes, cultural influences, and modern techniques, leading to a richer understanding of their craft. The conclusion leaves readers with a sense of empowerment. By committing to the slipbox system, you are not just improving your writing. You are cultivating a lifelong habit of curiosity, exploration, and critical thinking. Ahrens encourages readers to trust the process, emphasizing that the rewards become more apparent over time. Writing becomes less about wrestling with ideas and more about letting those ideas flow naturally from a well-organized and thoughtful system. Ultimately, How to Take Smart Notes is a call to action. It invites readers to rethink their approach to writing and embrace a method that prioritizes understanding, creativity, and growth. With concrete examples, actionable steps, and an inspiring philosophy, the book equips readers to tackle even the most challenging intellectual projects with confidence and clarity. By integrating the slipbox into your daily life, you can transform not only how you write but also how you think and learn. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey into How to Take Smart Notes by Sönke Ahrens. I hope this summary gave you a clearer understanding of how powerful the slipbox system can be, not just for writing, but for thinking, learning, and creating. Whether you're an academic, a writer, or simply someone curious about better ways to organize your thoughts, this method can truly transform the way you work and approach new ideas. If you're ready to banish the fear of the blank page, build a system that supports your creativity, and make writing a more natural and rewarding part of your life, this is the place to start. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on more insights like these. Drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts, or if you're already using the slipbox system, share your experience. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building your treasure trove of smart notes. Take care.